Hi, everybody. Welcome to Unveiling the Truth 333. Very excited to be here. I had a couple issues on my side, but that is just when we have storms here in Idaho. Sometimes StreamYard is not my friend. Katie, thank you so much for being here. And I'd like to do an introduction of you. I actually discovered Katie because I became obsessed with Skinwalker Ranch. And then I learned that there was another show called Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. So I started watching that one, and did they have 2 episodes with you on Beyond or just 1?
3. The
3.
3, and the 3rd one, my sister joined me, which was really we'll
Yes.
talk about that, yeah.
Yes, okay. And so let me introduce her. Katie Paige is a prominent American UFOologist, paranormal researcher, investigator, author, and podcast host, specializing in UFOs, high strangeness, cryptids, and related phenomenon. She has a deep personal and familiar ties to historical high strangeness property in Colorado known as Rocky Mountain Ranch, previously called Clearview Ranch. This site has a long documented history of UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, which breaks my heart, cryptid encounters, paranormal activity, and other anomalous events dating back to the 1970s, sometimes compared to Skinwalker Ranch. Katie grew up experiencing some of these phenomenon herself with which sparked her lifelong interest in the field, which is normally the case. Also, I wanted to tell you I have posted here her website on here. Hi, Michael. And I have her YouTube channel is Rocky Mountain Ranch Research. I believe I have that posted. If not, I will get that in there. And then she has I'm not sure, Rocky Mountain Research, ranchresearch.org. What is that?
That's the Rocky Mountain Ranch research site, and it just has a lot of information and things, so they're both connected, both websites, so one will take you to the other.
You are a busy lady because you're a mom and a grandma.
I
You
am.
don't look like you could be even a grandma at all.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for having me here, Robin. We have a little running joke, these StreamYard and Zoom and all that, they have the blur feature, and I have it on medium. It's like forever blur. So I wish I could carry that around with me everywhere I go.
I know. Yeah, if people saw me live, they'd be going, "Oh yeah."
If you saw me live, you'd go, "Oh, she's old."
Yeah. No, I like that blur feature because I don't have to put as much makeup on now for my shows.
I know. Raised 5 kids, have terrific grandkids, and life's been a journey.
Yes, it has.
It is.
Have you always stayed in Colorado then?
I was actually born in Illinois and moved out to Colorado. Of course, I'm going to age myself, but that's okay. I moved out to Colorado in 1970. My mom actually worked for United Airlines in Illinois, and then they moved their training tech center, computer center out here to the Denver Tech Center. So we moved out for that reason.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
And so we're going to touch base on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, of your ranch that you didn't stay there full time. Is that correct?
No, thank goodness.
I know.
I don't think I'd be doing this if I did.
Institutionalized.
Yeah.
So, okay. And so, as a little girl, 1975, 78, you experienced many things on the ranch. And so did your mom remarry, or was that just her boyfriend that owned the ranch?
Robin, it's really funny you should bring that up. And this kind of leads.
If you don't mind.
Okay, people out there, this was the mid-70s. So long story short, in a nutshell, I had a lot of trauma growing up, which is interesting. I bring it up because I do believe that disassociation can be a connection to some of these high strangeness events that a lot of people experience. It seems to be when we disassociate, whether it's through trauma, meditation, near-death experience, we connect into something else, which could explain perhaps some of the more hitchhiker kind of things that have been they've really been with me my whole life, but that's a whole other topic separate from the
Yeah.
ranch, or maybe it's connected to the ranch. I don't know. But anyway, so my half brother was an arsonist. So we had purchased a house next to my grandparents in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And interestingly enough, my grandfather, who my dad's father, had a UFO sighting in the early 60s over Lake Como in,
Mm.
near Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, of an oblong
Mhm.
shaped craft that he reported to J. Allen Hynek way back in the 60s.
Really?
So yeah, he was in the Navy. I never knew anything about that till much, much later in
Wow.
life. So fast forward, we moved to Colorado in 1970. 1973, my half brother burns down our new home in Colorado,
You're
and he
kidding
gets
me.
sent away. Yeah, he gets sent away to Pueblo State for arson and
Yeah.
other things.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
after that, my parents divorced, and my mother and father had a very volatile, violent relationship. A lot of fighting, a lot of hiding, and it was just a really
Mhm.
traumatic life.
Mhm. Yeah.
So in 1973, 74, she meets a gentleman at work. All
Mhm.
right. And this kind of all ties in. It's important because part of my research has been how much of the activity on the Rocky Mountain Ranch, which by the way just wasn't isolated to the 60-acre ranch, it was the whole
Mhm.
Elbert County area. And that's really
Okay.
important in this case. So
Okay.
many, many, many people were experiencing high strangeness events. And this is where Linda Moulton Howe gets her start as an investigative journalist
Really?
with the rash of cattle mutilations. Now, as a 9-year-old little girl, 10-year-old little girl, I'm unaware of all these things. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was ever investigated. I didn't know it was reported. My mom, my sister, and I never knew anybody knew anything about it. It was
Yeah.
just sort of this secret that we had that we
Yeah.
dealt with.
Yeah.
And so she starts dating this gentleman from work. He was married to a woman named Betty. Those two never divorced. Betty was dating a very interesting guy that he claims his name was John Duke. He claimed he was Air Defense Command out of San Francisco. Him and so it was John Duke and Betty and Jack buy this ranch in Kiowa, Colorado, and they wanted to start a cattle ranch. Immediately out of the gate, they started hearing hums and bangs and sounds underground, sounds in the air, very similar to the Taos hum, which we could talk about a little bit too. I do believe since there's aquifers undergrounds and
That's what I
caverns,
was
it
wondering.
could be,
Mhm.
yeah, it could be a
Yep.
natural phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
But on top of that, all these other really strange things started happening. And
Okay.
so, as a young girl on the ranch, the Betty and Jack had 3 sons. Their 2 youngest sons lived with us during the week, and our house was, an hour away basically, from where the ranch is. So we would drive back and forth on the weekends to take the 2 younger sons to see their mom, and sometimes we'd hang out on Saturdays or sometimes through the night, like that scary night with a disembodied electrical sounding voice. We were there to
Yes,
celebrate
I
their
wanna
mother's
talk
birthday.
about yes, I do wanna talk
Yeah,
about that. Yep.
yeah, for sure. But I have like I have a picture of John Duke, Betty, my mom, and Jack all together at Thanksgiving, and the boys and the family.
Wow.
So it was a really strange, unusual circumstance.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I really started in the paranormal realm because I've had a lot of paranormal things happen to me in my life. Got
Mhm.
hooked on ghost hunters, and that kind of opened the box of, oh, what is all this stuff?
Yeah.
And as many of us do, I got into watching documentaries and reading books and just gobbling up all the information I can. And
Mhm.
I picked up, well, first of all, I learned of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. Came
Yes.
in, I took the test, came in as a field investigator, worked my
Mhm.
way up the ranks on that and made state director and all that. But during those years with MUFON, I purchased a book called Hunt for the Skinwalker by George Knapp and
Oh,
Colm Kelleher, PhD. And I'm reading that book thinking, and this was before the show, Robin. This was before the Skinwalker Ranch show and all that. So
yes.
I just kind of read the back of the book and I said, wow, this sounds like the ranch of my childhood. And sure enough, I get to the chapter Other Hot Spots and started reading about a ranch in Colorado. And
Okay.
I'm like, because I knew the strange dynamic of the family. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this has to be.
This
This
is
has
your
to be
ranch.
the thing. And in that book, it referenced Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who was a psychologist out of Laramie, Wyoming, and
Mhm.
was in the field for over 40 years. did, hypnosis, did really great studies on the psychology of experiencers. And I wrote
Yes.
him, he's old school, I wrote him a letter explaining who I was, and he wrote me right back. And then the next weekend, I'm sitting in his office. So he
That's
verified, yes,
great.
this is that ranch, this is the family, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
And it's been a never ending journey really ever since that point. And not only did I learn of Dr. Leo Sprinkle being there, but there was John Durr, a PhD, and Peter Van Arsdale, PhD out there,
okay.
and others. So can you imagine? I'll never forget that day
Wow.
calling my sister on the phone and my mom. My mom has since passed, but I called
Mhm.
them both and I was like, you're not going to believe what I just learned. And yeah, and to get my hand on all those original documents and stuff. And I've been on the Rocky Mountain Ranch Research Channel. I've been reading through all these documents and kind of
Yeah.
commenting on what I think. Because what I've learned is there was for sure a military presence out there.
Yes.
And there's also not. So I've been trying to untangle that kind of crazy knot ever since.
So what'd your mom think of the ranch? I mean, when she experienced this, because you were young, and but she
Yeah.
was older. So what did she say? We're never going out there again, or she
You
just lived with
know,
it?
yeah, Robin, I love this because nobody's ever asked me about my mother before and her take on
Oh,
it. You're the first person to ask.
oh,
And it's interesting because me and my sister talk about this often, and my mom. And you have to remember, my mom went through a lot of trauma growing up with,
yeah,
with my father and that abuse and the fires
yeah,
and on and on and on. But
yeah.
my mom, when it came to the ranch, it was like sometimes she would just be like, she just would shut down, not talk about
Oh,
it. I don't
okay.
remember. It was just strange. And other times she would kind of, oh yeah, well, I don't know. Both my sister and I can't understand why she just shut it down. What's interesting though about my mom, she was very interested in ufology and she loved watching
Mhm.
the ancient alien shows. She was very supportive of my
Yeah.
work in the field and interested, but when it came to specifically the ranch stuff and her and Jack, and my mom would see Jack for many many years after
Okay.
the ranch years, and they sold
Okay.
the ranch after 3 years. And after maybe, 20 years of positive things about Jack, towards the end of her life, that was the worst mistake of my life. No, 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 no. She got really negative with it.
Really?
So I don't
Okay.
know. It's a really mixed bag when it came to my mom, and
Yeah.
if we could get her to even talk about it. So I
And
think
she
she
might
knew
have
more than she wanted to talk about. That's what I
and
think.
she might have just shut it down
Hmm.
because sometimes when people can't process with
Hmm.
things, they'll just shut it down
Yeah.
and put it back in a little cove in their mind and not use it because they just can't. It's like they can't handle it.
Yeah.
When you have too much trauma like that, and that
Hmm.
probably just put her over the edge. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
think you're right about that.
yeah, it's too bad, but
Mhm.
So if I remember correctly, I don't know what episode it was then on the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, where you went out into the yard or the field, and you talked about the round circle where you think a craft had landed, and it
Mhm.
killed the weeds, or it was just. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Was that you and your sister that were playing
Yeah,
out there?
that was me and my sister Chris, and that's a very so Chris is 6 years older than me. So when the
Mhm.
ranch years for her, she's like a junior, senior in high school.
Oh, okay.
She actually went to the high school prom with the oldest son, and went
Oh,
back to
oh,
the ranch and had a terrifying night. That still to this day, she doesn't like to talk about that night.
okay.
I wasn't with her on that one. So when it comes to my sister and I, sometimes we were together on the ranch and had shared experiences,
Mhm,
and sometimes, like with the prom, I was not there for that, and she had her own
mhm,
experience, and sometimes I'd go out to bring the boys back, and my sister wasn't there. As a
mhm.
teenager, she's, hanging out with her friends and boyfriends and things like that. So it's kind of interesting. We had shared things and not shared things.
Yeah.
But on that particular episode and that particular memory for us, it was a spring day. We get wet, heavy snows here in Colorado, but it'll be
Mhm.
blue sky, sunny. We happened to be there on the weekend, and we just decided to go flip the frisbee out front of the ranch house. And we look and we're like, God, this is really strange. It's dry dirt. It wasn't even wet. It was completely dry, void
Really?
of any life. Yeah, nothing grew there, but there was wet, heavy snow outside the circle. And that's
Mhm.
really the extent of our memory. It was just a weird thing. Didn't think a craft landed there. I never saw
No,
a
why would you think that?
UFO or
Yeah.
aliens or anything like that. It was just a weird memory. Fast forward, we get the original APRO report, which is APRO stands for the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization. And in fact, if you just type in, I think you have to type in Clearview APRO report. You can find the PDF online, and I also have it on my websites and stuff for people to
Okay,
look at. But
good.
in there, it referenced that particular circle on the ground. And in another document that I got from Leo Sprinkles, it said when the investigators went out there to investigate, they measured the circle and there were drops of blood in the snow outside the snowless circle, and that there were two of them reported on the ranch. Fast forward, I'm a co-host on UAP Studies podcast, and we had a Dr. Joshua Pearson. He did his dissertation on the UAP UFO phenomena, and so he's, it's like a three-part series. He's walking us through his dissertation, and in
Mhm,
one of his studies, one of the commonalities of dish-shaped craft that he would see repeated over and over and over again, and even in the
mhm,
Snippy case, is this
mhm.
75-foot diameter circle that's left on the ground.
Wow,
There was
okay.
actually a recent one that was featured in Oregon. And if you got, if did you ever watch the series on Netflix? And if you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's Investigation Alien, and the first
Mm,
episode in that is George Knapp, and he's talking about the cattle mutilations. And I'm
okay.
watching this 5-time generational farmer talk about his encounters with, he even shot at a
Hmm,
craft, but he too had this
good for him.
75-foot circle on. Yeah, I know. So it shows up over and over and over again. And what was really fascinating, I
Mm,
believe it was the second episode, and we're out there with Nicole and Greg and Nicole. They own the ranch now,
'kay.
and before COVID, I actually reached out to them. This was before Beyond Skinwalker. I left a note in their little box because it's all gated off, explaining who
Mhm.
I was, my connection. I didn't know if they knew about the history of their property, you know,
Oh.
and I didn't want to just like call them on the phone and go, oh, by the way, and scare the what out of them. So I left this
Yeah,
note in the box, and then COVID hit and
yeah,
shut us down. And
yeah,
I'm like, "Well, crap," because I wanted to meet him for lunch, meet him in person, whatever.
yeah.
And then the next thing you know, I get a call from Beyond Skinwalker. And that's
Mhm.
so when that first episode, when you see me back, that is legit the first time I go back. And that was a crazy
Wow.
experience. I had no
Did
idea
you
how I was gonna react.
Yeah, I was gonna say
But
I have a lot of nerves, you know,
yeah.
s first being on the show, second being
Mhm.
there. I mean, getting double hit.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it was really interesting for me because I had been researching it for some time. Of course, I've been, I drive by it and whatever, but I haven't physically set foot and seen the house and talked to Greg. And so,
yeah,
in between scenes, because when you're filming, one episode, which is like 44 minutes, they're filming all week.
yeah.
So that was the first time getting to meet Greg. And unfortunately,
Mm.
his wife, Chris, passed away after we
Oh,
filmed season one. And
oh,
then Nicole. And I knew the house was in the right position. I remember the tree. I remember the silo. All these memories are flooding back at me, but the
mhm.
house looked different. I'm like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
know it's in the right place, but it looks different. And it's because they had added an addition out to the
oh,
back, out to the side, they did a little sunroom on the front, and they changed all the siding.
mhm.
But then as we're talking, Greg's sharing, like, here's pictures of when we first bought the place. And I'm like, oh
Mm.
yeah, that's it. That's it.
There it
So
is.
it was yeah, there it is. And it felt pretty good in the daytime. But in the evening, of course, just like everywhere, like the
Yeah.
energy shifts a little bit. So it got a little unnerving for me in the evening.
Is there a mountain range by there?
There's not really. You can see Pikes
No?
Peak off in the distance, but this is in
Okay.
Elbert County, Colorado. And what's interesting about the terrain of this place, first of all, just
Mhm.
like all of America, but this place in particular is a very nomadic area. It's very similar to the Uinta Basin, and
Okay. Oh,
it has the
okay.
yeah, it has the Palmer Divide. So if you research Palmer Divide, so it's very highly energetic area, highly magnetic. Right where
Okay.
the ranch sits, actually, it's the highest elevation, and there's two aquifers that come together. So you have
Okay.
different water tables
You have
right there at the
water.
ranch property, and the geology of the place. You got granite and limestone and these things. And I feel like this is a commonality, whether you're at Marley Woods or in Sedona, at Bradshaw or
Mhm.
Skinwalker Ranch, they all
Mhm.
have the same ingredients.
Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
like, what is that? Is the phenomena attracted to these areas, or
Mhm.
is it the veil is thin, so we're experiencing, we can interact with the phenomena more easily in these areas? And I think maybe both are true.
Yeah, I agree with you. Um,
Mhm.
I want to now cover probably the scariest audio I've ever heard. But I want you to know, because I actually watched you this morning on a stage at a conference. It was the Ozark conference.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I love that. I have an Ozark conference t-shirt. I don't go, but I wear their t-shirts. But you posted the audio, the live audio, and I actually had to turn it off. I can take it.
Mhm.
But then I just put it on where I could write it down. And to me, so I've had some experiences too. So at a very young age in Sunnyvale, California, we would always see the Blue Angels fly above us and
Mhm.
in practice. And so you would always hear them coming before they would come. So as a family, we would run outside so we could see the Blue Angels. So it was just me and my mom in Sunnyvale, California, and we were by a cherry orchard, which is now a golf course. But we heard them coming, so we run to the back of the house, and we look up into the sky, waiting for them. And there's a UFO right there, plain as day,
Wow.
right there. And we're just looking at it, and my mom looks at me and goes, "Did you see that?" And I look at her and I go, "Yeah." And then we look back, and then we saw the planes without the UFO. So, I mean,
Wow.
it was just a UFO right there. And I don't know if the planes then were chasing it but it was like right off to our site. So it was over the house next door, and it was low enough to where I could see exactly what it looked like. So then I think when you have experiences,
Right.
you become interested in researching
Mhm.
why, what, where did
Mhm.
that come from?
Mhm.
And then and I'm intuitive, so I've helped on code case files with the police, and I've kind of moved away from that now. But I had a gray in my room sitting on my dresser, and everybody that's watching this knows all these stories.
Mhm.
So, and it was showing me something. It wasn't here to take me to do anything, but I had a picture frame past it, and I looked at the picture frame, and it was showing me all these different species. It was just like species, 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 species.
Wow.
And then I felt then it didn't look at me, but then when it would lift its head up and look at me because it was sideways, I was scared, and I had sleep
Mhm.
paralysis, and I was
Mhm.
so I just didn't want it to look at me. So I just looked past it at all the pictures it was showing me, and I felt like it was a conductor of those pictures. I was being shown something for a
Mhm.
reason that came later in my life. And then it was really weird. Like then the whole room went just black and then semi lit, and then everything was back to place. And I
Wow.
jump out of my bed and I'm looking all around, make sure that little thing is not in my house, like yeah, anywhere. But it was actually 3D. I mean, it was only like 2 feet away from me. And so when I heard your audio, I was really trying to get a intuitive stance on this audio. That's why
Okay.
I didn't want to hear the verbiage of it because it was so
Mhm.
mechanical.
Mhm.
And strangely enough, yesterday I just watched is it S4, Bob
Mhm.
Lazar's movie?
Yes.
And we have so much technology. Our military has so many crafts and so much technology. And as I was actually looking at the craft that we actually have in that movie,
Mhm.
and I've heard someone say this before, that those are very old crafts. They're not the new ones.
The ones
The
with
new
the
ones
little seats and the symbols and
are
the
little,
screens on the
yep,
inside of the craft. Yeah.
yep, very plain,
Mhm.
very basic.
Mhm.
And I just feel like those are old craft. And I actually felt that your audio was military. I I
Okay.
I I felt that the way it was worded was a threat,
Mhm.
and I don't feel that they may threaten you, but I don't think they would do that such an angst verbiage. To
Mm-hmm.
me, that was like the military that I saw on Bob Lazar.
Mm-hmm.
The military totally get in your face and say this. So,
Right. I'm glad you said that, Robin, because I am in agreement with you
oh,
for the
good.
most part. I have little doubts that come in, and I'll tell you why that is. But for
Yeah.
the most part, there's something that, first of all, I want to explain to your viewers and your listeners, and it's important.
Yes.
You know, first of all, for my sister, mom, and I, it was an extremely terrifying night on the ranch,
Yeah.
something we obviously could never forget. And, after that event and all the power went out in the house, that
Oh.
crazy voice, and
Oh, yeah.
I remember the adults going through like the equipment, like trying to go, where did this come from? Because it
Yeah.
felt like it just came
Come from the
from
TV. Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah, they're like looking at the old, the old speakers and things and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
consoles. And
Yeah.
so we leave the ranch, and this was early in the morning. First of all, I'm like, why are we hanging out till that time and when my
Yeah,
but I
man, I'd be
remember
in
it
the car
because
right now.
of the 3 boys and my sister, so there were 5 kids in the back bedroom. I'm the
Yeah.
youngest, and when you're that young and you're hanging out with all the teenagers, you're like, "Oh, I'm hanging out with the big kids,"
I
right?
would
Um
be peeing my pants.
Yeah. But when I get home from that incident at our house, it was just my mom, my sister, and I, to my memory. I don't think Jack was there or the 2 younger boys. I don't know that for certain, actually. They might have been with us. I don't know, but I feel like it was just my mom and my sister because I walked in the front door, went to the left, and I fell to the floor and I couldn't talk. I was like, my words were garbled, and they're like,
Oh,
"What'd you eat?
God.
You eat?" And I was trying to speak and I couldn't speak.
There's so much
Then I get
fear.
the full migraine headache and start
Oh.
vomiting and all that night. But the reason I know what the voice said verbatim is it's in the report. And when I read that for the first time, and my sister many years ago came to see one of my early presentations of my research that I'm uncovering, and I had played that audio that you're talking about, and
Yeah.
she literally had like a PTSD
Oh,
like moment
yeah.
from hearing that again because I tried to recreate it to the best of my memory, and
That was
basically
bad. That was bad.
yeah, basically it said, "Attention, we have
Yes.
allowed you to remain. We have interfered with your lives very little. Do not cause us to take action which you will regret. Your friends," meaning us, "will be instructed to remain silent concerning us." And I'll tell you what, my mom took that threat very seriously.
Oh,
So
yeah.
here
I
I
would
am
be.
in, 5th grade trying to talk to my and then, "Mm-mm, Katie, mm-mm." Um,
Mhm.
but so that's how we know what it said, but fast forward, just a few years back, I came across on YouTube um, something they called plasma ball technology. Now, I don't know if they had this in the
Um,
mid to late 70s, but if you can search it, plasma ball technology, and what it is, it's the military, and they pipe human voice sounds out to the field, and it sounds
mhm.
very mechanical like that. It almost sounds exactly what I heard. So
Mhm.
I agree with you, Robin. I think it might have been, and there's evidence in a lot of the documents and files that I pulled that there was a military presence there. In fact,
Mhm.
early on, I did a presentation in Laughlin, and Richard Doty happened to be there. And you know who Richard Doty is, or was, or is, or I don't know what he's doing now, but
No.
he's a disinformation officer for the military.
Oh, oh,
And
oh, oh, yeah.
yeah, and the whole Dulce, I mean, it's the Benowitz story and all that. And
Yeah.
so I had 2 questions to ask Richard Doty when I saw him face to face. And you know how fate just kind of does things out of the
Yeah.
blue?
Yeah.
For some reason, unbeknownst to me, I had my cell phone. I had my cell phone in my hand and it was recording and I didn't know it was recording.
Good for
So I I
you.
I have my phone like here, and what's really interesting, I approached Richard, and I don't know if I have any books right there. Yeah. And he's walking down the hall, and I'm like, "Hey," and his body language goes like this,
Oh,
So his body language completely tightened up and
he
changed.
knew who you
And
were?
I said, "Hey," he goes, "Oh, we were just," quote, "we were just talking about your presentation." Who's we, first of all? I said, "I have
Mhm.
2 questions I want to ask you, Richard. Were you aware of the Rocky Mountain Ranch, meaning the military?" And he
Mhm.
said, "Yes, we were."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Okay, that's just weird. Why would you be?" And
Mhm.
secondly, I asked him about the 2 A-7Ds that crashed, the interceptors. I don't want to get these papers out of order. And he told me, he's the one who said, if you want information, send a FOIA to Kirkland Air Force Base mishaps office about the event. And I did. And I get this
Okay.
huge, let me pull it out here. I get this huge report back, and it's huge. I'm telling you. Like huge
Wow.
report, right? Um,
Awesome.
it's really suspicious. And how this came
Oh.
about, there were in Dr. Sprinkle's files, they talked about two A-70s that were scrambled in pursuit of a UFO. Now, this is during
Mhm.
high mutilation time. I mean, Colorado
Mhm.
Bureau of Investigations is involved. Um,
Mhm.
in the governor of the state, people, there's rewards out to try and find these perpetrators of all these animal mutilations.
Yeah.
So, people are arming themselves and what.
Yeah.
And so these two interceptors, supposedly it was a student and an instructor that scrambled their interceptors out of Buckley, which is now Space Force. And in here in the reports, it said that 8 of the instrumentation panels of the instructor go out, are inoperative. That's
Oh, wow.
suspicious. Then they
Yeah.
say the instructor misidentifies the rotating beacon of another aircraft. Never in this whole report
Yes.
does it identify what the other aircraft is.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And that's
Okay.
part of the reason for the crash. He hits the tail of the other, both pilots eject, both pilots survived.
Wow.
But it's fascinating. I learned the only time the United States Air Force ever admits front page of scrambling jets after UFOs, UAPs, was on the
Mhm.
same day, November 11, 1975. Falcon Bridge, Ontario, they're watching multiple UAPs on radar go from
Wow.
26,000 feet to 74,000 feet. So
Mhm.
they decide to scramble two F-106 Delta Darts over out of Selfridge, Michigan. These hits are going like 35 nautical miles over the Great Lakes, whatever. They never get visual sighting on these hits on the
UAP.
radar, but
Okay.
they admit scrambling them after unknowns. Then at Contact in the
Wow.
Desert a couple of years ago, I was talking to Travis Walton about that. That same day, November 11, 1975, right after midnight, was the day Travis Walton was returned from his abduction experience. And
Oh, wow.
it was also the day that the Edmund Fitzgerald sunk. So all these
Wow.
events are going on across the country, and
Wow.
in where Dr. Leo Sprinkle has his archives in Laramie, Wyoming, it's if you go into Laramie, there's like a TP building, that's the archives.
Oh,
And
wow.
Richard Haynes has his connection. And Richard Haynes, he really focused on pilot reports, pilot sightings. And so I was really curious, about that
Yeah.
particular date.
Yeah.
And the month before that, they were many, many, many reports from pilots. I mean, commercial pilots too, military pilots, commercial pilots, private pilots. This huge wave was going
Same
on
area?
across the country. Yes,
Oh,
say all
okay.
across the country.
Okay.
Yes, and it kind of falls off right after November 11th. It just kind of slowed way down. It was like this bell curve. I'm like,
Hmm.
whoa, what
Wonder
was going
why.
on there? But
Yeah.
I agree that a lot of the phenomenon Rocky Mountain Ranch was probably MK Ultra
Mhm.
black ops kind of stuff.
Mhm.
One of the documents had his name was Warren, his last name was redacted out. He said he visits the ranch from Camp Carson. So again, why is there a soldier there from Camp Carson?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and he was in back of the ranch house. He said he felt something wrong. Something took over his mind, made him walk towards the forest, would release him, and he would run back. And this did this to him 5 times. So that's like a mind control kind of thing.
Yeah.
John Duke talks about taking legal LSD,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
they did those
a-
studies. Yeah.
yeah. And then
Yep.
he talks about having vagrants and things like that on the ranch. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So a lot of weird kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
that doesn't negate for me. I don't think it's all military.
No.
I think it's a
No.
mixture. Yeah.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
might be working together.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
might have had, when they were trying to scare you, they might have said, "Okay, we need to get these people off here. We gotta do this thing," whatever
Yeah.
they're doing. So
Right.
let's scare
What's
them.
right, but what's weird about that? That property sat vacant for, it says in the report 7 to 12 years. So it was vacant for a long time, many years. If they wanted to just acquire the property, they could have
Why didn't
just
they?
done that. But
Yeah,
then enter
they would
John
have done.
Duke, the mysterious John Duke, and we pulled like the records from the archives of the property, and his name is like penciled in there. it's like a weird transaction. So I feel like
Mm.
maybe the military actually acquired that land, and maybe where that circular burn spot is. When we had on Beyond Skinwalker, I don't even know if this made the episode or not. I haven't watched them back, but they had the ground penetrating radar guys there from Oak Island. Super
Mhm.
nice in person, by the way. They were really nice.
Cool.
And when they ran the magnetometer over
Mhm.
the landing site,
Yep.
it came back normal up to a certain depth, and then it was just completely blacked out. And they're like,
Mhm.
"We have not seen that before." So is
Yeah.
there something underground right
Yeah.
there? And that's what, like, David Morehouse, they remote viewed the ranch and that particular night. There's just a
Mhm.
bonus clip on that. It didn't make any of the episodes to the degree I think it should have, but
Yeah.
so many things like that came forward through the remote viewers that this is a location where maybe some technology's hidden, or they were experimenting with
Mhm.
technologies and things like that.
Or you might have just a little semi base underneath you, and it could
Maybe.
be, yeah, it could be a little bit of, well, it's like Skinwalker Ranch. A lot of their I talk about time tracement with Skinwalker Ranch. It kind of Skinwalker Ranch threw me into something as they were doing all their experiments, and how
Mhm.
they would take a picture of a rocket going up, and then, you know, how they just kept taking pictures, but then the rocket, the fumes were going up in the first picture, but then the rocket was next to it. It was not
Mhm.
in the same frame. It went moved over to the side.
Right. The
And
time.
I started calling that time tracement because
Mhm.
the entities are showing you something that they can break time up, and it's
Oh,
and they
yeah.
can break it all up and move it all around, and they're actually showing you something pretty fabulous that they can do.
Mhm.
Um, and so then that just threw me in because time is just such a we have such a dumbed down part of time
Yeah,
here. We just look at our watch and go, okay, it's 2 o'clock, gotta go. It's so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than that. And they can move it forward and they can move it backward.
I agree.
But I think you have something. I think you guys are like maybe a mini um, Skinwalker Ranch. Have you ever felt that?
Well, I mean, these reports and this activity happened many, many, many years, almost a decade and a half before Skinwalker
Yeah,
Ranch.
yeah,
So yes, absolutely. And what's interesting, and one of the big questions I've had, besides how much was military and how much was actual phenomena,
yeah.
um, is it still going on today? What's going on now? And
Mhm.
I mean, for example, this just came in. It's a can I bring
Oh,
my glasses up? I do. I have my glasses. So this is a
mm,
Norfolk UFO sighting that just came in. Case number 195872 occurred on January 29th. No, occurred January 29th of this year, reported on the 30th.
mm.
Two observers were military observers. Location, Kiowa, Colorado, right by the Rocky Mountain
Oh,
Ranch.
wow.
And it
Okay.
says, "From my back deck, I can see into the distance many miles to the northwest." It was cone shaped. Now, what's important about the cone shape? That's reported in the 70s. Cone shape.
Mm.
Nighttime, size of a football field,
Wow.
closest distance 25 miles, estimated time incalculable, lights on object, large craft that hovered stationary and suddenly vanished. This is, and even when, with the reports coming in to Colorado MUFON, many reports, but this particular report here, in doing Beyond
Yeah.
Skinwalker, you know, the very first interview, we're in a bar. So I get to know
Mhm,
the bar, people and other locals. And that's been great because
mhm.
now I can ask,
Talking to
hey,
them.
what have you experienced? And a
Yeah.
lot of these are generational ranchers. This
Yes.
particular witness, and he said this was approximately November of 2021. He's an elk hunter, very credible man, great background. It's
Mhm.
dusk, and it's interesting. A lot of strange, especially with cryptids and things, and we have reports of cryptids out there as well, happen
Yep.
around dusk for I don't know why. But anyway, so he's hunting. There's a part of near the Palma Divide where it's really forested, where he
Mhm.
feels uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
he's like, for whatever reason, like he's an intuitive like
Oh,
you, he doesn't want to
yeah.
go back. But
Yeah.
he's walking back to his pickup truck after elk hunting in this other area by Palmer Divide, and he sees an orange glow in the trees. And
Mhm.
this is his sketch. He said it was two pie tins,
Oh, yeah.
one on top of the other. He said
Oh,
one was spinning clockwise, one was spinning counterclockwise, and he's booking it now. He's like, "What the heck am
yeah.
I watching?" Turns around, the thing vanished. So, fast forward, me and Tony and the witness decide to walk back there. What's fascinating about right where he saw this craft was an elk path right
Oh,
underneath
yeah.
of it. And I'm like, is there an elk
There we go.
connection to some of these
Yeah,
encounters? So that's another recent mutilations, animal
yeah,
mutilations in the middle of the day. So
yeah.
this stuff is still occurring, and I don't think it's all our military.
That, um, can you hold up that picture again?
Mhm.
Because a second craft that they show towards the end of the film of S4,
Mhm.
is called the Jello mold,
Right, yes,
and
very
it's
similar to this. Yeah,
similar
it
to
is.
that. Yep.
Yeah,
And yeah, and okay, so let's go back to Higdon case. I know you researched
yeah,
the Higdon case.
I have.
So somewhere along the line, these pills that have been floating around, I've heard 2 times stories of the pills. Somewhere I heard that it has some part of our animal in it, beef powder.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering, is this something they're manufacturing for sustaining themselves on this planet while they're here?
You are good. You are you are good. I've had I've had that
Sorry, I just
same yeah, no, I've had that same thought, and there's been, you know, through the decades, there's been, like, speculation on what's with why are they taking the soft tissue and the blood, draining the blood of these animals, and, of course, we all know it's not just cow, it's sheep and horse and, like, the
yeah,
Snippy case that, we can touch on that here in a minute,
yeah,
but,
yeah.
and even dog, found reports dog, and so different animals,
Mhm,
and so why are they draining the blood? Why are they taking the tongue and the eye and the soft tissue and the rectum and these things? And, you know, are they making like the little food pills like in the Higdon case where they floated
mhm,
over the pills?
mhm,
Or I've also heard from other so-called insiders that kind of maybe know some information about S4 that the extraterrestrials absorb nutrients through their skin.
yes, yes,
And so are they
and
mixing it up
excrete
and rubbing it
excrete,
on their skin?
yes. I've
Yeah,
heard
and there's
that and excreting, mhm,
copper in the blood, the high copper in the blood
yep,
of these
yep,
animals. So a lot of different theories like that. And, I do believe that maybe a portion of these mutilations were us grabbing cattle to test groundwater. And a lot of these fell like
I
by
I
the Titan
think
missile silos and test sites and things
yeah,
like that. But certainly not all of them because so many
yes,
of them are
yes,
so strange, like in the
yes.
Snippy case, really.
And I've heard that actually. I was had Preston Dennett
And yeah.
on last week or the week before. Anyway, they believe that this is military doing it, like just drying them up, dropping them down, just to
Yeah.
scare people. Da, 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 da. I actually haven't intuitively gotten a huge amount answered because I think there's really not an answer yet to that can be divulged to us. I think when we don't get answers, we're not to know yet.
Mhm.
We can speculate, but I
Did you
think
get did you get any answers on whether it was all because I don't believe that that's true. I don't believe it's all military. Did you get any answers on that particular
see,
part of the question?
when they said that, it kind of shocked me because that I had not even thought of that before. That
Mhm,
wasn't even a thought in my head. It was like, why are these? Because the Higdon case, they took
mhm,
the deer. They
mhm.
took 3 deer or
Oh,
whatever,
well, the
and
elk, yeah, the elk.
elk, yes, sorry. I'm not a hunter. Elk, yes, and I thought and they take those elk to the planet? Didn't
Yeah,
he
they
see
did. It was
them?
like it almost
Yeah,
looked like the Seattle Space Needle up there and
yeah,
stuff like that, and that's a
yeah.
really interesting case. It's a well-documented case, by the way.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
Dr. Leo Sprinkle, he was the investigator on the Higdon case as well. So if
Oh,
you
is
go to
he?
the archives, and I recommend anybody if you just want a weekend away or during the week, all the
Mhm,
original photographs are there and medical records.
yeah,
His truck was found in a mud bog away from where he parked it. He was burned in the eyes. The other witnesses saw the craft. There was a square burn. So the boxes is another thing. There's a square burn right there where it happened that was burned into the ground. I
Yeah.
don't think this was anything we did. This
No.
certainly was
No.
an unexplained event. And so it's cases like the Higdon case and other many witnesses that I've talked to throughout the years that convince me that this is not just the military doing this. And in fact, then it raises the question, which came first, the activity or the military? Were they like, oh, we got all these strange things going here. We better get in here and start researching and figuring this stuff out. And I think that's
Yeah.
more likely the scenario.
Yes. And it's just, I feel that some of the crafts that are coming down are what I call scientists.
Mhm.
And they are here. My viewpoint is this earth doesn't take care of itself.
Yeah, right. For sure.
We have beings that come down and they're looking at the dirt, they're picking up the, plantage, they're taking the animals, and even the Sasquatch, I feel, are here to observe and to make sure everything is, running in alignment. We don't have this catastrophe of, So I just feel like man is destroying the earth, but then you have all these species coming in to try to help repair it.
Yeah, I think I think that's a really good thought. And on the ranch, and I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before, there were 2 types of ETs that were reportedly there. Now,
Okay.
was this some sort of psyops? Were these holograms that were presented for, the adults? I mean, I've had these thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's these Tubi guys, right? These guys, these
yeah.
strange
Those are
Tubi
very
guys. And
yeah.
then these were the cryptids. These were in Dr. Sprinkle's things.
Okay.
But so there were these guys there that
Mhm.
were described as really like kind of pathetic, actually. And I don't know, old, pathetic, kind of weak, helpless, kind of diplomats they were described as. But then there were
Yeah.
the blonde, blue-eyed Nordics. And in the
Mhm.
reports, it said that these ETs were in conflict with one another. And
Mhm.
basically, that's where the warning came from, like, don't mind
Oh.
us, we won't mind you, kind of thing. And then you add in the boxes and all this stuff. But what's so I thought, well, maybe these are holograms or something. But what's fascinating and what happened to me is early on researching this stuff. At the time, I was a guest speaker coordinator for Colorado MUFON, and I learned of a gentleman by Sean. His name's Sean Bartok, and he had a ranch. Supposedly, his ranch was in Castle Rock, still not very far from Kiowa, but turns out his actual ranch is 14 miles away from the Rocky Mountain Ranch. And he wrote a book about all the things that went on there, circles on the ground, a lot of similarities, just like in the Snippy case. And up pops a drawing of an ET that he encountered in 1970. 2 drawings of this thing.
Wow.
Here is the one drawing right here, this guy, and he said the tubes in the neck came
He had
out.
tubes? Oh,
Yeah,
serious?
he had tubes.
Never.
And so look at the wrinkles, the brow, the
Mhm.
size of the eye, and then look at this guy. So do I have a picture? This was the second picture of him with the tubes out. So he had tubes. And so you put those
Interesting.
pictures side to side, and I have it somewhere. But I mean,
So, do you think it's
yeah, it's in my
robotoid?
hand. So these are the one at the Rocky Mountain Ranch, and that's the one at the Bartok Ranch. We did not know each other. So either his family was a victim to the same military psyops
Mhm.
operation, or we're dealing with something different. And I also think it's interesting, Robin, that you brought up the Bigfoot, because Bigfoot, and my mom called them white fuzzies because these were like gray haired things, Bigfoots. But I always felt a direct connection to the Sasquatch
Yep.
and the craft. Like, are they bodyguards? Are they getting does it have something to do with the cattle? Think about cattle. How heavy and big are they doing something with the cattle?
Mhm.
Things like that. And so I get this email here from Robert
Mhm.
Salas,
Oh,
saying
uh-huh.
like, men and women stationed at Malmstrom were having cryptid sightings, and they're
Mhm.
almost identical to the cryptid spotted at Rocky Mountain Ranch. And he was basically,
Mhm.
this is a confirmation to what was going on, and to the point of lie
Mm.
detectors tests, things like that, that they
Wow.
passed. Same at the
Yeah.
Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. They still have cryptid sightings
Yeah.
on the ridge line of the academy.
Were
So
those cryptid tall? They
yes,
look small. They were
yeah,
tall?
no, yeah, they were tall.
Okay.
Yeah, like 7
So
feet.
I have a you don't know me very well, but um, everybody listening, I'll just really quick. We went to Mount Shasta as a kid. We had 3 people boating. I disappeared. I went into the woods at 5 years old, 5-ish, and my story was I was lifted up by something hairy, and it took off through the forest with me, and I was facing out this way, and my legs were getting cut because I could hear all the branches snapping. And then
Mm,
just when I thought, oh, my legs are hurting, it turned me sideways, cradled me up. So it was totally embracing me. And so then I was facing into it. And all I remember is the hair, the hands, and the breathing. And then I passed out. So then
whoa.
after 2 hours of everybody, because I thought she can't go far. I'm in a bathing suit with my life, vest on. I was raised in the 60s. Um, and I had those little flip flops, that were just rubber that were
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to call them thongs, but now you can't do that anymore because
They're like $1.99 at the yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so they thought she can't get it very far because she doesn't have anything on her feet and she's little. So they looked a long time, and then no cell phones or anything like that. So
Right.
then after this one man went to this cove area, and I don't swim, that's why I had a vest on. And he just looked at it, and he just felt together. There's nothing there, so he turned to leave, and he heard a splash, and he turned back, and there was my body, and my life vest, which my dad was Navy, and so he would tie it in Navy knots. So there's no way you can get that off.
Right.
And so then that was floating next to me. So he ran out, got me, brought me back, revived me, and my legs were all cut up and bloody. And of course, I didn't remember anything, But when that man, he said he looked up at this top part of this cove, and there's a red Sasquatch standing there watching. And so that's the only way I that verified what I had seen. And anyway,
And his hair, the hair on his hand and stuff, you remember, was like a reddish
it
tint
was
to it?
red and it's long. It was like went down. It
Almost
like
like
is
an
long.
orangutan kinda.
Yeah, but the hand was gray. I remember gray hand, dark gray, and
Huh.
just the sound of the breathing. And I told my parents, like, oh, we were going so fast. It was like a Disney ride. I kept calling it a Disney ride
Disney
because he
ride.
was going so fast through the woods. So
Wow.
I have a regression coming up June 12th
Oh, I'll
because
be curious to
I don't remember. And so I'm going to see if she can pull it out of me what happened.
awesome. That's
So
awesome.
anyway,
It's
I'm
interesting you're Navy as well. My grandfather and father were both Navy as well, and we hear that a lot. I hear it a lot in experiencers, and that's the first branch that comes up the most is Navy, then Air Force, then Army, then Marines. But you do hear a lot of families, and it makes sense to me logically that if you were another species from another planet, you might want to track and monitor families of military because that's where our weapons and our wars and our things are coming from. So
yeah,
logically to me, I'm like, huh, that's kind of a connection that would make sense. Um,
interesting.
yeah.
And the 411, I really feel that he should, since he's put so much work into it, documenting where all the colored Sasquatches are coming from. People say red is in Shasta, yours is white, brown over here. So there's just such a multitude. And I know they migrate, but
Mhm.
and they are major portal openers, let me tell you. And they know how to
Oh,
disappear.
yeah.
And
I
so
I
go ahead.
agree. No, I
Yeah,
was just gonna say I agree.
yeah. And I do believe that your military, for some reason, I have seen in Colorado and Washington State that they have captured Sasquatches and they're, you know, diagnosing them to see what they are. They're very
Yeah.
special beings, I feel.
I think so too. And you know, I have my whole cryptid section over there, and
I
there's
do.
a good book. Yeah, there's a really good book. I'm sure you've probably read it. It's Psychic Sasquatch, because people
Yeah.
say they have the ability to communicate telepathically in that, which, you know,
They do.
is a big theme, and it's kind of
Mhm.
coming out recently with the psionics and everything.
Yeah.
But one of the most interesting nights filming Beyond Skinwalker was that first night back. And we were expecting snow, but not that much snow. It started coming down heavy.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to the viewers, I was actually taking the film crew back where I encountered one of these strange boxes in the daytime.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And of course, the boxes never made the episode because one of the things that Beyond Skinwalker had to agree to, it's two different production companies, Skinwalker and
Oh,
Beyond, but
oh, okay.
they would not greenlight Beyond without Travis Taylor's okay. So
Mm.
if you know Travis Taylor's
Mhm.
background, raises some red flags for me a little bit, right? And then
Yeah,
he had to
yeah,
approve everything that went out. So it was this kind
okay.
of interesting
Yeah,
kind of
dynamic.
thing going on. Beyond
Yeah.
Skinwalker didn't get renewed, by the way. So I don't know what that
No.
either. I don't know if they were making too many connections and they were like, enough. But anyway, so I'm taking the crew back to where I had this box encounter. I'm trying to remember where it was. I was a little close, but not exact because it was coming down blizzard and there was barbed wire that was down and I had fallen
Mhm,
forward. I was just wearing
mhm.
blue jeans. I was not prepared for that much snow. But it
Yeah,
was just, I mean, your footprints were getting covered with snow fast. And
wow.
out of this blanket of snow come these bipedal footprints. And I was like, thank
What?
God the fruit footprints,
They were
bipedal, large
coming with and you
in the
didn't see what was
snow.
making it?
And what
Whoa.
was crazy is it's like they went underground and then reappeared and then walked a little further and then disappeared again. So something came up, walked, went down, walked, went down again. And this was
How
not
do
a
they do
horse.
that?
This was not a cow. This was not a deer. This was
Yeah,
not an elk. This was not a human. I feel like Greg and his family have been on that ranch for over 30 some years. Quiet. Nobody's out there. I feel
yeah,
like whatever's underground was like curious, like what are these people doing out in this blizzard with
yeah,
these cameras? And they were just curious and they popped
yeah,
up to see.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
this I've heard that the skin or the, Bigfoot can go underground, and they
Right.
like to live around crystals in the water.
I believe that
Yeah,
that's true. And then that next day we had off filming. So my daughter, Jenna, and I were in Castle Rock. They have a big outlet mall there. And I'm like, okay, I need to go to the like Columbia store and buy long johns and gloves and
yeah,
stuff to be
yeah,
prepared for any more snow that comes. And we went to lunch at Red Robin. I'm just eating my cheeseburger, and I'm like, something's wrong with my back. So we get
mm,
back to my hotel room and my daughter, it's all, you can see it on the thing, but
mhm.
it
I
looks
saw it.
like a hammer. I should send it to you to see if you get a read on it.
Mhm.
But it's like a handprint. It was hot to the touch. It blistered. It almost looks like a radiation burn, but it almost to me looks like a handprint up here. And I was getting a lot of people reaching out to me going, "Oh my gosh, be careful. There's something evil. It's something bad. It's some." I never felt that way though. To me, it felt I felt like maybe it was trying to help
Pick
me
you up,
up.
pick you
Yeah,
up.
because 'cause I've always
Yeah,
felt pretty protected. I've had some scary things, but
mhm.
I feel somehow protected. Do you understand what I mean by
Oh,
that?
totally, totally.
Yeah, so
They're
yeah,
my protector, yeah.
yeah.
And I when you were talking about seeing the feet print, I was thinking they were coming up to make sure you guys were okay.
Yeah, that's how I felt,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
whatever that was, it was just curious
Did you
and
have a
almost
greasy
protective in
residue?
nature. Huh?
What did you have a greasy residue around with that, burnt feeling?
You know, that's an interesting question. I have video of right when it was recorded. I should look because I'll tell you, right after we noticed that, we were at King Soopers buying in. I put ointment on it, and
Mhm.
my daughter had me get a protection candle because she was afraid too. In
Yeah. Well, of
fact,
course.
my daughter, and I'm trying to think how old she was at the time. She might have been 21 at the time. We filmed that, and it was really interesting because she's like, "Hey, mom, I want to go visit the ranch." And within a split second, it was like she got this download or upload, and immediately she went, "Nope." She's like,
Mhm.
"Nope, I don't want to go. I'm not going to
Yep.
go."
They're saying no.
It was like she was told no.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. And same with my witness that I shared that picture with. He had that same kind of download. Like he took me back to where he saw that craft, and few months later, he got this huge, like I wasn't supposed to take you there. I shouldn't have taken you there. So that's a whole interesting kind of thing I really never really talk about, but a lot of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff goes on.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Mhm.
There's so much in this world we don't know about.
That's
And
right.
we get an inkling of information. And I believe there's actually a couple different kinds of there's the rogue Sasquatches that hunter gatherer, sick of people, hate you. You point a gun at me, I'm going to get you,
Right.
things like that. And I think it's where the area where the Sasquatches are. And then there's the kind, peaceful. And then I believe, to me, the ones that I keep seeing is a white Sasquatch. I call it Natil. It's a white
Oh.
Canada, and I believe it's in Canada, and it's mind speak. So somehow I'm connected. And then I do, we'll talk later, but I had a Sasquatch at my window, and its eyes went on like a car light, and I was frozen.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and I live in Boise, Idaho. I live on a corner lot. I have a lamp, outside street light. And so that's where I could actually see it was a Sasquatch, because it was being illuminated from behind. And
Wow.
then when the lights went on in its eyes, then I could see the cheeks and then the nose, because it lit up its face. And then I have no memory. So we're going to regress me on that one too.
How interesting. I'm
Yeah.
curious, can I ask you a question? I'm going to turn the
Yeah.
table, but I'm curious about your 333.
It is it's something that's in me. The threes are mine. And so fours have been actually prominent now, but ever since I was young, threes are my number. It's something that I have around me, and I see it all the time. I see the time always 333. In fact, I worked in a job and I started telling people, "Oh, it's 333," and then they start going, "Hey, Robin, it's 333," So threes
That's
are in
something
me.
we have that in common. We have that in
Do we?
common, and it's a protective number. Yeah, I'll send you a little video. My half brother, the arsonist, he passed away,
Mm,
and he was institutionalized his whole life. I've never talked about this on
yeah.
anywhere before. And so when he passed away, I did not know for 3 months. In the state of Colorado, you cannot cremate, you have to bury.
Oh,
Because
really?
there was no next of kin. And so when I
Yeah.
called his caseworker, I'm like, hey, like I checked on him every few months, maybe once every 6 months. And I'm sorry to inform you, but he passed away and he's in an unmarked grave. So I got with my mom, we bought him a headstone, and I had put in a bald eagle on his headstone. And like many mental illness patients in that, he was an extremely gifted artist, and did art and things like that. So I put some art and a quote on his headstone and things like that. And right around the time that he passed away, I started waking up at 3:33 on the
Yep.
like clockwork.
Yep.
333s everywhere 333, to the point where it
Yep.
was obnoxious. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? And
Yep.
what's crazy about that is it was my birthday. I'm across the street at my neighbor's house just celebrating. Since we're from Illinois, my dad was a huge Chicago Cubs fan. So I had my Cubs glass, right? And I just enjoying the day, and this bald eagle. And I've lived in this house since 1988. Never seen a bald eagle there in my neighborhood ever,
Wow.
ever.
Wow.
This is in Centennial. Like, there's no, and this thing just whoop right over my head. I'm like, holy
Yeah.
moly. And
That,
then I'm looking at my Cubs glass. I'm going to send you the video of this. There's a bald eagle on the back of the Cubs emblem, and there's a
oh, wow.
date that it was made. It's the date of my brother's death.
Wow.
And then I was like, and
He
then
was
that's
doing
where
the
I made the
show.
connection. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I put a
He's
bald
there.
eagle on his headstone. So
Yeah.
my half brother was communicating with me from the other side. I really believe that. Like, I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like
Yeah.
he was asking forgiveness and whatever. So that was a very profound thing. And then kind of slowly the 333 started fading away, because they are a number of protection, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of like, it's a 111 331, so I'm getting
Yeah.
combo
Yeah.
numbers now, but I really pay
Yeah.
attention to those signs. I think that's
Yeah.
important.
And they are. And I actually,
Yeah.
before you and I came on, I felt you and I are kindred. To get us, if we ever come together, we're going to be a power. And especially I would love to go out on an investigation. In fact, I was thinking of even doing a conference myself, of a little conference in Colorado. I know you're doing one. And I thought just because of my little crew of people, my tribe, and go out and look at the stars, and we could,
How
stay
would
in
you feel about
cabin.
going? How would you feel about going to Rocky Mountain Ranch with me?
I would do it.
Would you do it?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
But I
Let's
would want
plan
more
it.
people. I would want more people. I'd want some guys there and stuff.
Okay.
Oh,
Let's do
you
it. We'll
mean to
plan
spend
it.
the night?
Yeah, we could stay the night there. Greg will let us.
I could do that. Have to do major
Yeah, we'll
protection.
protect. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
plan
and
it.
I think, if you have Sasquatches there, and if I'm not supposed to do it, I'll let you know, because I would know
Okay.
that I
Yeah.
can't go. But
Okay. And if you can't go there, we can do something else,
mhm,
locally here. But I would love to do that. I agree with you.
yeah,
There's something that's kindred here. Something.
yeah, yeah, and I feel us together would be powerful,
Hmm.
um, as long as the military stays out of it.
Yeah. Hey guys
And yeah. Shh.
and gals, guys and
Well,
gals.
can you hang with me just a little bit longer? It's been an hour, or do you need to go?
Hmm. No, I'm good.
Okay, because we haven't hit.
I know we
You
haven't talked
know,
about Snippy
I
yet.
got this book, and this is your book, Snippy, yours and Tony and Giola,
Angela, he's the
and
author, I'm co-author. Yeah.
and he's your fiance.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Like to meet him one day. Anyway, this is the most beautiful cover I've ever seen, and
Oh, thank you.
I've written 9 books, so you trumped me.
Aw. Thank you. I'm not gonna lie. I had AI help me generate the original idea,
Oh
but
yeah,
then I
that's
went and
okay.
redid it all by yeah, then you have to go in and, do it graphically the correct way. Otherwise it's all pixelated and not as clear and everything. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did get the idea from that, but I think it's not the original. The original cover, and here's
I
the
saw
reason
the
why we changed
original.
it. Here's the original.
The
So this
original, I
this
probably
one.
well, yeah, it's like I
This
probably
one.
might not have bought it if I had saw that. But
Right. And
he's alive, but kind of ghostly.
this drawing came from the original
Oh yeah.
Aprofile.
Oh,
So
okay.
I thought, and same with the one on the back. So I thought, how cool to put original drawings from 1967. But what ended up happening was Amazon was like, you cannot advertise that cover. It's too macabre. So we're like, well,
Yeah.
we better switch the cover, and we put it on the inside now of the
Yeah.
book.
Well, we're
But this,
good.
yeah, but this particular book, Tony Angiola and I,
Oh, that
basically, it was like fate. It
why?
literally was fate because David Marler acquired the original Apper files after being gone for over 30 years, which of
Mhm.
course we know investigated Rocky Mountain Ranch. So for me, Rio Rancho was in that far of a drive out to Rio Rancho to see if I could find more information on Rocky Mountain Ranch. And what does Dave do? He's like, here, Katie, plonk. And he plops down the snippy documents, audio recordings, photographs. It's just like a lot. And he
Yeah.
had known that I had been in touch with Kerry King, who is the, great nephew of Nellie King, the original owner of Snippy. And
Oh, yes.
they actually have an event in the San Luis Valley. And if you can make it out for this event, anybody listening, it is a fantastic event. This year it's August 14th through the 16th in the San Luis Valley. You can just type in Snippy 2026 to get more information about it.
Yeah, yeah.
They have a
Uh-huh.
wonderful lineup of speakers this year,
Yeah, you
really
do.
great, multiple genres. But anyway, so because I met Carrie King, there was the question of Lady versus Snippy. The name was changed in the late 80s
Yes,
and
yes.
whole
I
kind
read
of
that.
thing.
Mm.
Nobody had photographs, blah, blah, blah. So can you imagine Dave hands, all these original photos that have
Oh,
been
my,
lost for all these years, and there's a
yeah.
picture never seen before, 2 photographs of
Yeah.
Snippy as a colt with his mother Lady. And the
Yes.
cool thing about a lot of these photographs, and there's like over 100 photographs,
Can I
of
show that
different
picture?
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah,
Is
the
this
book is
it?
worth it just for the photographs alone. Yeah,
There we
there
go.
we could see it. There it is. That's
Okay.
Lady and Snippy. And one of the interesting things too, so there was a whole 4-page document on, Snippy was a birthday gift given to
Mhm.
Nellie,
Mhm.
and, he was born in Estes Park. The stud actually broke into the fence, and that's how Snippy came to be.
No.
And, but there were 4 horses pastured on the King Ranch. Smokey, a black, 14 hands high, 1,200 pounds. Lady, the dapple gray. Lady was gray.
Mhm.
Snippy's mother, and then Sheba, another brown horse, and then Snippy. And the week before Snippy's mutilation, the black horse, Smokey, dies. And at the time,
Size of
they
what?
thought maybe it died from a rattlesnake bite in the hip because there was a little swelling in the hip. But a horse that big, a rattlesnake will not kill a horse that big unless it gets it right
Okay.
here.
Okay.
So Smokey's death remains a mystery, and there were so many animal mutilations in that area at the time. Their next door neighbor to the Kings was called, his name was Ernest Wellington. They called his ranch the Dead Cow Ranch, and there were
Hmm.
cows going blind, hoof
Oh,
hooves grow like skis. It's in the book too.
yeah.
And Ernest Wellington, who finds a strange, unusual tool, what they called a tool. They said it was shaped like a gizzard. Nellie kind of picks it up with two sticks and pokes at it, and this green ooze comes out of it. Ernest Wellington passes away a week later. And his daughter, Leona, she lives in Australia now. After the release of the book, she contacts Tony and I and says, I really want to thank you guys for getting the name right. I was there. And I asked her point blank, do you think your father's passing, because he was in his early 50s,
Hmm.
had anything to do with that? And she thinks it did or does. So
Hmm.
there was so much more. Here, I thought we were just going to open the floodgates on this first mutilation that went viral, basically. And it
Hmm.
turns out the amount of connections to Rocky Mountain Ranch, I like weekly, I was just blown away.
Yeah.
From the box encounters, missing time,
Yeah.
circles on the ground, 75-foot circle on the ground, like this substance, I mean, all sorts of things, paranormal things, a hitchhiker
Hmm.
effect, on and on and on
Hmm.
and on and on.
Yeah.
That I'm just like, okay. And this is pre the ranch. So you asked
Yeah.
earlier, Robin, if this was all the military just doing stuff out in Elbert County. No, it's
No.
things like this. It's things like this that go, no, 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 no. There's way more to this than we can ever understand. And it all interconnects. And even the
Yes.
esoteric side of things. But there's even like pictures of this
Yeah.
is Lonnie Zamora from Socorro, the actor Socorro, and it's kind of ironic too because Tony Angiola and Ben Moss did the whole book on Socorro. So it was like,
Yeah.
holy cow, they worked on the Snippy case too. They compared the castings from the holes in the ground and things. They didn't really match,
Yes.
but it's
So
interesting they worked together.
that's weird. You just talked about the holes in the ground.
Yeah, there it
So
is.
what is it? What are these? I didn't
Yeah, I
read
don't
that far.
know. Yeah, here's another, and I don't know if you tag that in your book, and I could try to find it. But those holes are interesting because they're not horse prints or anything like that. They're like kind of around this Chico brush, very symmetrical. And as
Yeah.
fate would just have it, while we were working on this particular part, we're looking at the photographs and everything on
Hmm.
Facebook. One of the UFO, I can't remember which organization it was, they sometimes will post historical cases.
Hmm.
And this one historical case had almost the identical kind of indentations in the ground from this circular thing above a craft that came down. I'm just like, oh my gosh,
Like a
maybe
leg?
that's connected. Yeah. And it was just weird the
Okay.
timing of that coming across. There's also these
Okay.
cryptid platypus critters that we're seeing out there, sheared off fence posts, things like this. There's so much
Yeah.
to this. It was just mind blowing. But one thing, there was photographs of these strange prints in the ground. And you have to
Yeah.
remember around the Snippy event, it had rained on and off, so the ground was very moist. In
Hmm.
fact, that's why the finding Snippy was delayed because it was really muddy and stuff out there. So you could see even bird tracks out there, and you could see like the coyotes coming by Snippy's carcass but wouldn't approach it, which is a common thing. We know
Yeah.
other animals don't approach these carcasses. Well,
Are
there
you
were
talking
these
about
two
this
strange,
one?
yeah, this track right there. It looks like it's not a Bigfoot track, right?
Yeah. No.
No, and it has, like, these claws. I'm like, "Is it bear?" But what's weird about it, Robin, there's only 2. 2
Two of
in
them.
2, that's it, nothing
Was
going
it
off, nothing
like
coming,
a
just
claw?
as if something flew in and landed. And we do
No.
know we get cryptid birds, these large cryptid
Oh
birds.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They come from Alaska. What is that? What's the
Mhm.
name of them?
Well,
I
some
did a
of them
show on
claim
them.
they're like pterodactyls, some say they're
Yes.
like,
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes.
was that a large type of cryptid bird? It just landed, boom, and then it would, and it's funny because you could see it's, the in the photographs, it looks like it's heavier towards the back
Hmm.
of the print.
Yeah.
as if, and it would be if something just took off like that. And what's fascinating about it, and some of the recordings, so there are recordings with Agnes King, Nellie King, Burl, and even J. Allen Hynek. There's recordings of him, and in some of these recordings, they're like they did not want that leaked out to the press. They held those back. And so it's really fascinating to go back after all these years and see all these notes of things like we don't want this out, or we're holding that back, like the sheared off fence posts and many other things, the green ooze. There were original hand drawn big, and they were big. Like, Dave, can we get these of the map of the crime scene basically? And it has
Okay.
all the holes and all that. And it's all in the book. The original calendar was in there from 1967 with all the events written on it. That's
Wow.
in the so, I mean, it was literally 7 months, 6, 7 months of just nonstop, 7 days a week from the minute we
Yeah.
get up till 1, 2
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning working
Oh
on
yeah.
putting, this book. And, it's not us. We just put all the facts out there. All the documents are in that book, all the
Yeah. But
photographs.
now
Yeah.
I'm going to call you Nancy Drew, and I'm going to call Tony the Hardy Boy.
Yeah.
Because I said, Nancy Drew, she's like investigating. We got Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boy.
We even had stuff on the walls. Our whole floor was covered because
Oh my gosh.
Tony was really good at finding discrepancies in the data. So he would be like,
good.
okay, here it said 250 feet. Here it says 25 feet. Where's the truth in that? So he's a truth seeker in finding discrepancies in the data and stuff.
Mhm.
So it was an adventure for sure. And I'm glad we did it. I mean, if nothing else, it was an honor to do that for the King family.
Yeah, and I mean, do they still have Snippy's remains somewhere? Because they have them.
Yeah.
They're at
They're at
a.
the UFO watchtower. They're
They
at the
still have
UFO
them.
watchtower.
So
Yeah.
will you talk about the bones? Because they said the bones were white when they
Yeah,
found
when they came across Snippy's carcass, it had been like he'd been, laying out there for years.
Okay.
Because his bones were bleach white. A week later, they turn a bright pink. A week later, they turn black. So
Really?
a lot of these weird, yeah. And then of course there's Dr. Altschuler and that whole thing where there was this white powder in the stomach. The brain is completely dry. No brain at all. Is completely gone. Just all sorts of. I mean, the deeper we got, the more we were just mind blown. And there's a chapter in the book too on all the crazy wild theories at the time. Lightning
Yes, I
bend,
saw that. Yeah.
the radioactive red ants, and
Yeah.
these somebody claimed they maybe built a tripod and put a big vat of
Right
that
here.
and dumped for Snippy.
Like,
I mean,
how
there's
long
no
was Snippy
footprint, there's no
gone?
track mark, there's no way that could have.
No one would do that.
No.
And if they did do that, they need to be in jail for a very long time if they did that
And
to an
even
animal.
the boys that shot Snippy post-mortem, there's the audio recordings, saying that the boys would sign an affidavit stating that they shot Snippy post-mortem. So they just
Why'd they do that?
played
I
being
didn't read that.
kids, just trying to get
Being dumb.
attention. I mean, it
Okay.
was
The
big
carcass.
news around the world. So I think, they're just being teenagers and they were caught and they're like, put those, in the trunk, and and they were afraid that they were going to get in legal trouble for doing that. And there's like on the recording you hear Nellie going, there's no laws against shooting a dead horse.
No.
Poor
So
Snippy.
I just want to put a plug for this. This is probably one of the best books I've ever read. It's researched. You guys will be fascinated. It's kind of like a mystery that starts unraveling. You guys just start unraveling it with all the information. And I love the pictures. And I'm not into mutilations at all. I will go the other way. But this I could handle. But I want to talk to you. What do you think actually happened with Snippy?
That is a good question because folks like yourself and I've gone under hypnosis, and there's a part of me that I I'm more skeptical than a lot of people believe. I
Mhm.
like I'm in denial. I've actually had experiences tell me, Katie, like, you're in denial. You need to like wake up. And but part of me, maybe I'm a little too afraid. And even with the
Yeah.
hypnosis, I still don't know what to make of all of that came out of my mouth and everything. What's weird about that, though, because you brought it up earlier, the Bob Lazar film, where they said part of the craft, there was like a transparent window that literally my voice changed to a little girl's voice, and I described a translucent part of the craft coming up like a window. I described that in my hypnosis.
So you've been in one.
I don't know.
In your regression.
In my regression, yes.
Yeah.
In my regression, yes. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But where was I going with that? You asked me about
what Snippy do you think Snippy?
Oh yeah, what do I think happened to Snippy? Now, Tony, who did he did all the writing and the bulk of the work. He thinks it was definitely something unexplainable happened to Snippy, and with all the evidence, it certainly points to that, and not military. There was just too much going on in the valley, still is going on in the valley. So, yeah, I think Snippy's death is something else, something unexplainable. Yeah. And that's hard for me to say coming from me, because I want to chalk it all up to something else more explainable.
You did a good job on trying to define all the evidence in here. And so everybody get this book. It's Snippy the Horse, and it's by Tony Angiola. I'm so bad with names. And Katie Paige. And it's on Amazon.com, or it's on your... Is it on your website?
Yeah, the website, it'll just take you back to Amazon.
Okay. And it's the most awesome cover. I mean, I'm into color.
Oh, thanks.
I'm probably ADHD or something. I like color. So very good. And I really appreciate you. Was so excited to meet you. And yes, let's be friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you want to, I could figure it out. Get time off work and maybe take a short stint, because I'm in Idaho, so Colorado.
Not too bad.
Probably wouldn't get too far over there. And I would probably just spend one night, see how it goes. Probably nothing will happen.
Well, you're welcome anytime, and it's a pleasure to meet you, and you're always welcome here too. So
great. Thank you. And well, let's have you on again, because we have more to talk about. Because you have other books out there too that I didn't get to. So, all right. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. And so we will be back. I'm actually going to take some time off because I'm writing my last book. And so I will probably take a month off of shows, and then we'll start back up. In May, we have Jeff Selver again. He's a UFO experiencer. And Mike Patterson, who's from Canada. And he is a Bigfoot researcher. And actually, he has actual Bigfoot that he has been actually teaching language to.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. So he's worth watching. And he's bringing a book out. I said, yay. So I like my books. So thanks, Katie. Everybody, thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.